Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. By the way, a shout out now to Jack Haney, the head of the Patriot Gold Group, who is with me over the weekend and probably is listening to the show now.
Jack, hello, Jack. I'm in New York, Dick, and Dick is in California. That's why if you hear a little echo with Dick, he's in a closet right now.
That echo is not Doug speaking. That's just an echo.
Well, I'm Italian, so if I sit on my hands, I can't speak.
So the Israeli attack on Iran was a huge success, brilliantly played by Donald Trump. Here, Donald Trump faced a problem in taming Iran's nuclear ambitions. He had promised to avoid U.S. involvement in what he derisively called endless wars. And now he was faced with the need once again to project American power abroad. To do so, he played a double game. Negotiate with Iran and lead its rulers to believe they had flummoxed, great word, the United States once again flummoxed, meaning to fool, to absolutely...
whatever.
Yeah. Flummoxed the United States once again, just as they had conned Obama and Biden. But this time it was Trump who played the fox, inducing Iran to lower its guard while our ally Israel was preparing a potentially lethal blow. So Trump didn't flip-flop. It was a game he was playing to get the Iranians to basically relax while Israel was preparing to kill him.
Dick, let me jump in. Let me just tell you, as I said quite a few times for the last couple of weeks, and I don't know this for a fact, he didn't tell me this, but I believe he said to Netanyahu, hey, listen, if you got to do what you got to do, don't worry about it. I'm going to say, I told him not to do that. He shouldn't have done that. And I'll just look the other way. Don't worry about it. I believe that. And I don't know for a fact, but I believe that.
But what I think the media has not caught on to is that was a deliberate strategy by Trump to deceive Iran.
Absolutely.
And make this a surprise attack. In much the same way, well, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And by letting Israel do the heavy lifting, Trump has his cake and can eat it too. He can accomplish his goal of denying Iran the ultimate weapon while avoiding another endless war. Trump and Israel both understand the basic math of the equation. Iran cannot continue to spread death and mayhem unless we let it sell its oil abroad. Through skillful use of sanctions and secondary sanctions on anyone who doesn't cooperate, we can stop Iranian oil sales. And isn't that simple? Trump has skillfully imposed sanctions, not just on Iran, but on shipping companies that would carry its oil to China and other allies.
And even the captains of those boats, right?
Exactly. Personally, you're right. By going after the logistical framework of Iran's oil trade, the tankers, the insurance companies, the storage facilities, and the export machinery, the U.S. has effectively shut down Iranian oil exports and its funding to spread terrorism. And until Biden lifted the sanctions and let Iran get off the mat and back into the ring, now Trump needs to retrace his steps and shut Iran down again. But this is important. Bear in mind that Trump is targeting not only Iran, but China too. It's a twofer. 90% of Iran's oil exports, 2 billion barrels a day,
2 million.
after Biden lifted the sanctions, goes to China. 90% to China. And 16% of all imports of oil to China come from Iran. So by hitting Iran, he is also really hitting China. Without nuclear weapons and with its regional proxies like defeated Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Syria, Iran is very close to getting rendered militarily inert, and it gets closer with every Israeli attack.
Dick, I talk about, the U.S. is like Superman, right? And Netanyahu, he's like Clark Kent, and you know what I mean? And now they just stuck him in the side.
Yeah.
So Netanyahu took his eyeglasses
Great song,
off.
Doug.
Yeah, that was good, right? So
now there's a problem in that that Trump has with the L.A. rioters.
Oh God!
He can arrest them. He can send in the Guard. He can send in the Marines, but he can't prosecute them because these are state crimes. So he puts them in handcuffs, drags them to a jail, and then the prosecutors don't prosecute.
Yeah, but now they got the Hobbs Act. The
Go
Trump
ahead, explain.
administration will be charging rioters and looters involved in the anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles under the Hobbs Act, Attorney General Bondi revealed. No lenient and leftist prosecutors in L.A. can no longer let the demonstrators avoid facing the result of their actions. Bondi criticized California Governor Gavin Newsom, stating that if he wasn't going to keep California safe, the Trump administration would. Bondi continued to point out that Los Angeles had imposed a curfew on Tuesday night, and that did help a bit. We've been seeing on the news all of these drugstores getting robbed, getting looted. The Apple store just got raided. I mean, we're all watching this live on the news, and this isn't just looting to me. You think people just run in, take something, leave, and nothing happens. Bondi explained. We're using the Hobbs Act, charging, if you loot the store, we are going to charge you with robbery under the Hobbs Act, and you're looking at maximum of 20 years in prison. The Hobbs Act transforms a state crime into federal felony by prohibiting actual or attempted robbery or extortion affecting interstate or foreign commerce. That's awesome.
And that is so brilliant of Bondi and of Trump.
That's
to basically take a state function, which is prosecution, and preempt it by the federal government. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. So great. You got a song here, Lux? Hit it, my man.
You can run, but you can't hide.
That's great.
That line was originally by Joe Louis, the boxer, and he was facing Max Schmeling, who had beaten him before, the German who became heavyweight champion for a few months.
Oh, yeah? And what's his name used that?
Louis said that Schmeling can run, but in the boxing ring, he can't hide.
He really can't run either. He can only run circles.
Yeah, that's right.
So a grand jury indicted Representative LaMonica McIver of New Jersey on a trio of charges. Acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Helena Haba, said Tuesday. The indictment continues the Trump's administration's legal attacks against opponents of its immigration policies. And it comes as the administration has sent troops into Los Angeles over immigration protests. The indictment is a required step for prosecutors to keep pressing felony charges, announced last month, following a scuffle outside an immigration detention facility in Newark involving McIver. Two other Democratic members of the Jersey congressional delegation, also the city's mayor and a group of federal law enforcement agents. The three counts which alleged McIver forcibly interfered with law enforcement officials come with a maximum sentence of 17 years in prison. I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
Right. That's against 2 years in Congress.
Wow.
But the next story is what's particularly important.
The L.A. riots.
These L.A. riots are being paid for by funds from the Biden administration.
This is unbelievable. The various Democratic-aligned groups helping to fuel the anti-immigration and customs enforcement uprising in Los Angeles, well-funded and part of a coordinated operation despite organizers' efforts to make them appear spontaneous and grassroots. Yeah, of course. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, CHIRLA, one of the activist organizers at the center of Los Angeles protests, received millions in taxpayer dollars through government grants, including federal funding for immigration assistance services. Wow. Formed in 86, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of L.A., CHIRLA, is a legal services provider helping illegal immigrants, including those convicted of crimes, to avoid deportation. CHIRLA informed criminally convicted immigrants of California's Proposition 47, which downgraded and resentenced certain crimes. Under this 2014 state statute, felonies involving drug possession, fraud, and theft were classified as misdemeanors instead. That's nice, right? Prop 47 could help clean your criminal record. Oh, that's great. That's what I want to do. Clean everyone's criminal. Yeah, okay. CHIRLA previously advertised, noting that non-citizens with criminal convictions may be deported. According to CHIRLA's tax filing for fiscal 2023, the charity reported receiving approximately $34 million in government grants that year.
Let's interrupt this for a song.
Yeah. This is unbelievable.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. Grant records show CHIRLA has been awarded several six-figure grants since 2014 as part of a citizenship and assimilation, an assimilation program that financially supports organizations actively working to remove barriers to naturalization. Unbelievable. The Trump administration cut off CHIRLA's federal funding in March. Thank you, Mr. Trump, including nixing nearly $100,000 remaining of a 2-year $450,000 grant. CHIRLA has also received a significant amount of taxpayer funding from the state of California. In 2023, the state's Department of Social Services awarded CHIRLA about $3 million for an initiative providing free legal service to immigrants, such as application assistance in cases seeking immigration remedies, i.e. deportation relief. Since at least 2020, CHIRLA has been granted $3 million each fiscal year through its legal assistance program. In 22, CHIRLA received $1.3 million from California's Social Services Department, specifically to provide pro bono defense services in removal proceedings. CHIRLA's deportation defense team, nicknamed Warriors for Justice, was bankrolled by the Los Angeles Justice Fund, a public and private partnership between liberal grant-making foundations, the city of Los Angeles, and Los Angeles County. If you see ICE, this is what they say, if you see ICE in L.A., don't stay silent. Report it to the L.A. Rapid Response Network, CHIRLA wrote last week. You believe this? Yeah, so whatever. Ridiculous.
Trump and Bondi need not just to arrest the rioters, they should bring criminal charges against CHIRLA and against the state officials and the federal officials.
It's unbelievable.
That funded them. They are part and parcel of these riots. They caused it. They're funding it.
And coming up after the break, Maxine Waters says, but this is not violence. None of this stuff is violent. Don't worry about it. We got a break, Dick.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group, and I hope the head of the Patriot Gold Group, Jack Haney, is listening.
He better be.
He better be, because everything we're doing is sponsored by him.
I love Jack, and his wife is an amazing artist.
She's fabulous.
She's fabulous. It's amazing. Oh, by the way, Dick, I'm in the studio in New York, and I see the picture that we always see every week of Bush and Bernie Kerik. Bernie Kerik, God bless, he passed away last week. I just want to say, we feel for his family.
So they're throwing fireworks at cops. They're blocking highways. They're setting trash cans on fire.
So?
Setting cars on fire. But Maxine Waters said this is
peaceful.
not violence.
Yeah, when Democrats see people hurling rocks and shooting commercial-grade fireworks at police officers, blocking highways and setting trash cans, traffic cones, and cars on fire, they don't see a riot. Maxine Waters called this a peaceful protest. There was no violence. I can't believe she said this. There was no violence. I was on the street, I know, and I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people. What happened in Paramount? What happened in Paramount? What happened in Compton? What happened in Inglewood? Waters said Tuesday. Really, House Democrats insisted Tuesday that protesters in Los Angeles were largely nonviolent and that President Trump inflamed the anti-deportation protests by intervening with National Guard and Marines. Oh, so he put the National Guard there, and then there was violence. Not there was violence, and then he had to put the National Guard. Okay, yeah, sure, okay, Maxine. They said the only violence is being committed by agent provocateurs intent on making their opposition to Mr. Trump's deportation agenda look
bad. The only reason that Trump had to send in troops is that the LAPD, under the direction of Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles, was doing nothing and letting them take over the city.
Unbelievable.
And Trump said after Minneapolis, after the other examples we've had of demonstrators taking over a city, like in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, we're not going to tolerate this in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and then they said, don't just rely on what you've been told or the few indictments that you saw. He's provoking. He's trying to, meaning Trump, he's trying to make sure that he gets people angry, Waters said of the president. She's unbelievable. And, of course, we always have to be careful that they're not agent provocateurs that we've learned about.
Yeah.
Historically, that's in the middle of all of this, trying to make sure that they create violence. We're not just like when we said about January 6th. So now they have to go to this.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a parody of their own argument.
It really is.
I mean, to say that this is not violence, well, what the hell is violence?
What is violence? That's right.
Now, while that's going on, the Broward County Sheriff announced that he's not going to, in Florida, announced that he's not going to help ICE.
Yeah, Florida Attorney General to Broward County said, help ICE or lose your job. Last week, Broward Sheriff Gregory Toney said his department will not prioritize arresting undocumented immigrants who haven't committed crimes. On Monday, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, I think that's how you say it, Uthmeier, warned the sheriff that could cost him his job. Uthmeier posted a strongly worded letter Monday morning addressed to Toney on X, lambasting remarks the sheriff made during June 3rd Broward County Commission budget workshop meeting, in which he said that there are other priorities in this community that I'm focused on, and immigration is not one of them.
Yeah, so he's deciding what the law is. He's deciding what the priorities are. And good for Governor DeSantis, his attorney general, James Uthmeier.
He said, help ICE or lose your job.
Yeah, that's right.
Help ICE or lose your job.
And that's what the message we ought to be sending all over the place. In New York and other cities that are sanctuary cities. Help ICE or lose your job.
I think it's coming across, Dick, don't you? It feels like
it is. It is.
You know? And by the way, I'm here with Roxanne, the one that says, hello, goodbye, bye-bye, hello. Say hello to Roxana.
Hi, Roxana.
Say hello, goodbye.
Hello, goodbye.
Hello, goodbye, hello again.
Okay,
ICE in Los Angeles targets the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
It's important to bear in mind that these heinous criminals, including child abusers and pedophiles, are some of the illegal aliens arrested in L.A. The rioters in L.A. are fighting to keep rapists and murderers and other violent criminals loose in Los Angeles streets. Instead of rioting, they should be thanking ICE officers who every day wake up and make our communities safer. On June 8th, ICE agents in L.A. arrested Eswin Uriel Castro, a previously deported illegal alien who had been convicted of molesting a child and being armed with a deadly weapon. Castro had been charged with robbery and domestic violence as well. Similarly, ICE agents arrested illegal alien Rafael Gamez Sanchez, who had been convicted of vehicular manslaughter, and Estacio Enrique Sola Salinas, an illegal alien from Nicaragua, who has child cruelty charges against him and has been convicted of domestic violence and hit and run. Miguel Angel Palafox Montes, an illegal alien from Mexico, who self-deported twice before, was arrested by ICE agents. He had been convicted of grand theft, narcotics violations, identity theft, and charged with assault and battery. So these are the lovely people who the Democratic Party is trying to keep on the streets of Los Angeles and demonstrating against the ICE agents who are trying to throw them the hell out of Los
Dick,
Angeles.
let me jump in. But, we always say, because they want the votes. There's no votes coming from these people.
Right.
Why would they want to do this? This is what I don't get.
Well, it's what I've been saying from the beginning here, Doug. When the Democrats lose an election, they move to the left.
Right.
And they do so not of their own choice, but that their constituency makes them. And what's happening here is by the deportations, Trump has so inflamed the Democrats that they can't help themselves.
Right,
They're
that's
reflexively opposing everything Trump's doing. And it's building his popularity piece by piece by piece. Please do more of this. Now, while this is going on in L.A., there was an assassination in Minnesota where we don't know, that we can't confirm who the assassin was. He hasn't been arrested or charged, but they're looking for him. And his name is Bolter, Boelter.
Bolter.
And he's a Waltz appointee. He shot and killed the majority leader of the Congress, of their state assembly, and his wife, or her husband. And he was appointed to a 4-year term on the governor's workforce development board under Governor Waltz, and previously had the same role on the council under Dayton, the previous governor. So this guy is actually an appointee of the would-be vice president of the United States, who the Democrats were trying to nominate.
Well, then Waltz, as vice president, would have nominated him or appointed him to some nice legal job.
Yeah, maybe head of the Secret Service or the FBI or something like that.
Yeah.
Butler, the alleged assassin, was driving a vehicle nearly indistinguishable from a legitimate police cruiser and had equipped himself with law enforcement paraphernalia, including a badge, a vest, and a taser, allowing him to pass as a cop.
Oh, my
Inside
God.
his vehicle, investigators discovered flyers bearing the phrase "No Kings," the rallying cry of the anti-Trump protesters going on throughout the country on Donald Trump's birthday, alongside a manifesto and a list of targeted political figures, including both Hoffman and Hortman, who he shot. Now,
by the way, happy birthday, President Trump.
The cops in Minnesota are refusing to release the manifesto this guy wrote, probably because it makes clear that he is a partisan left-wing Democrat, a gubernatorial appointee turned assassin. And the reason he assassinated the majority leader of the Senate in Minnesota is that she was the only Democrat to vote with the Republicans to ban Medicaid to illegal immigrants. And she was assassinated shortly after casting that vote by a gubernatorial appointee from the Democratic Party who had served for 8 years, 2 terms, on the state board appointed by the Democratic governors of Minnesota. This is the most unbelievable political crime imaginable. And they're suppressing the manifesto this son of a gun wrote, because the partisan implications of that would be so horrendous.
Unbelievable. Once again, the same. It's unbelievable what they do.
Well, it highlights what a radical Waltz is. When Harris named him, we were so focused on going after Harris that we didn't have time for Waltz. But he is a genuine left-wing communist loony. And the fact that he appointed this guy who assassinated the leader of the state Senate, the Democrat, because the leader voted to cut off benefits for illegal immigrants, is just so outrageous. It's
unbelievable.
Beyond belief.
Hey, Dick, Sandra wants to talk about this, our favorite woman with the piano. So, Sandra, are you there?
Hey, Sandra.
I am here. Listen, you're gonna hear some stuff. The fake news saying, "Oh, he voted for Trump." Oh, the friends are saying he voted for Trump, so they're going to try to put this on Trump. Never happened. In his car, he has no King leaflets in his car,
right.
And he didn't like what that former Speaker of the House or former House Speaker said, Melissa Hartman, that she didn't want the illegals to get certain money for Medicaid or Medicare. I'm not sure which one.
Medicaid, yeah.
You know what this reminds me of? Luigi Mangione, number 2.
Oh, my God, you're right.
It is, but it's all public employees. It's all appointments by politicians. Wow. Now I have some good news. There has been a huge change in the economy this last month. The economy changed 3 months ago, and I talked about this on the show, but now consumer sentiment has caught up with it. Consumer sentiment soared in early June, rising for the first time in 6 months and posting its strongest monthly gain since January. The university's closely watched index of consumer sentiment jumped to 60.5 in the first half of June, up from 52.2 the previous month, a 16% gain that beat every estimate in the Wall Street survey of economists. The sharp rebound in optimism follows weeks of steady economic data, including soft inflation reports and a series of trade announcements from Trump aimed at restoring long-term stability to U.S. supply chains without reigniting price pressures. We have a song about that.
We do?
We do. Lux?
He's going. Anyone know why I call him Lux? His name is Kelvin.
Well, I'll sing it if he won't. You are my
don't.
sunshine, my only sunshine.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, like I was saying.
Is this Johnny Cash? That's
Now,
not
there's a
Johnny
political
Cash, is
story
it, Dick?
about that song. There was a guy named Jimmy something, I forget his name, who sang that song and got elected governor of Louisiana, basically on the basis of having written that song.
No.
The gains in consumer confidence was broad-based, with improvements unanimous across the distributions of age, income, wealth, political party, and geographic region, the survey's director said. That included gains among Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, and a particularly strong jump in expectations for business conditions and personal finances. The sentiment index had drifted lower in recent months amid media warnings that Trump's reciprocal tariff policies would cause inflation.
Yeah.
But those fears are now receding. Inflation expectations plunge. Consumers now expect prices to rise 5.1% over the next year, down from 6.6% in May, the largest one-month decline in short-term inflation expectations in 30 years. The long-term expectations had lowered to 4.1%, marking the second straight monthly drop.
Beautiful.
So what went on here is that Trump took office. He imposed these tariffs. He cut the spending. He laid off these federal workers. And the media all said, oh, my God, this is going to be a disaster. Trump's going to cause huge new inflation,
right,
huge unemployment, and a new recession. And people listened to the experts, and they said, wow, bad times are coming. And consumer confidence plunged. Then it didn't happen. There is no inflation. There's not much unemployment, and now people are saying I was conned. None of this is true. The dramatic repricing of inflation risks aligns with recent government reports.
The CBO.
Showing that both consumer and producer prices rose all of 0.1% in May.
Right.
Defying claims that tariffs would fuel a new wave of cost-push inflation.
Yeah.
Instead, prices for goods have remained stable or fallen, and many retailers are now reporting renewed consumer spending strength. And at the root of this is the fact that Trump's tariffs are working. The sudden reversal comes amid signs that the administration's trade negotiations are lowering uncertainty. Late last month, U.S. and China agreed to maintain current tariff levels, and President Trump has delayed a planned tariff hike on European goods while talks proceed. While the media and some economists warned that April's trade measures would rattle the markets and undermine confidence, the data suggests consumers have grown more confident in the direction of policy.
That's beautiful. Listen, when we come back, we'll talk more about this, right, Dick? And what are we coming to after that?
Well, we're going to talk about how there's a new report that most of the jobs that Trump has created have gone to Americans,
Beautiful.
not to immigrants.
All right, when we get back. Thanks, brother.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. The Department of Commerce issues data about who's getting new jobs that Trump is creating. And they unfortunately don't divide it by legal and illegal. They divide it by born in America and not born in America. And for the last, under Biden, virtually all of the jobs created went to foreign-born workers who had recently arrived in the United States. But the BLS data, Bureau of Labor Statistics, reveals that since Trump took office in late January, all net job growth has gone to native-born Americans.
Nice.
The president has succeeded in creating hundreds of thousands of jobs since he came into office, more than 500,000 jobs, and they're all going to native-born Americans. Compared to May of last year, when Biden was still president, nearly 1.4 million more native-born Americans held jobs in May of this year. Among native-born Americans, and again, I wish the stat included legal immigrants because it should, Trump created 1.3 million new jobs that went to people who are born in the U.S. Among foreign-born people, the job market shrunk by 20,000. So 20,000 people who were basically foreigners lost jobs, and 1.2 million people gained jobs. That's what I call a win.
Yeah. And they're going to do that with the GM plants also. GM plans to invest $4 billion in 3 American assembly plants, including moving or increasing production of 2 Mexican-produced vehicles to the U.S. The Detroit automaker announced the plans Tuesday. Early this year, President Donald Trump implemented 25% tariffs on imported vehicles and 25% tariffs on many auto parts imported to the U.S. GM said the investment will add assembly of the gas-powered Chevrolet Blazer and Chevy Equinox that are currently produced in Mexico to 2 plants in the U.S. and convert a large idle plant in Michigan, formerly expected to build all electric trucks, but they're going to make the gas-powered SUVs and trucks in 27. GM declined to discuss the future of the Ramos Arizpe plant that currently produces the vehicles in Mexico. The production of the Blazer will fully move to the U.S. from Mexico, while production of the Equinox is expected to be additive to the Mexican plant, which also will produce other markets. So that's good. So there's Trump is coming across with what he said he's going to do, bring people here.
This is unbelievable. he is literally moving the automobile industry back to the United States from Mexico.
Didn't they move, Dick? Didn't they move down with Obama? They went to Mexico. I don't remember if that was
these plants left the U.S. under Obama and under Biden, and now Trump's tariffs are bringing them back to the
amazing
U.S.
how
it's amazing that
strategy.
This is working. You know, you couldn't do better economic news, and it's exactly programmed as Trump planned it. It's unbelievable.
And then people say, oh, he's an idiot. He's ruining the economy. How could they say that after hearing just that?
And at the same time, inflation is very low.
Right.
Consumer prices barely rose at all in May.
Right, and jobs going to American-born people. I mean, just on and on and on.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Now, Trump is also reversing a lot of Biden's policies on cars and on the environment. Particularly, he's reversed Biden's power plant rule. Trump is moving to axe Biden-era climate and pollution rules for power plants, Lee Zeldin announces. The move comes as the Trump administration looks to promote a fossil-fueled future, and we have a song about that, I think. Smoking.
I love
the
that
US
song. That's
smoking.
Boston.
And
Boston's
that's
great.
That's good, not bad. The EPA is proposing to overturn Biden-era rules that required coal and new gas plants to capture 90% of their carbon emissions and tightened restrictions on coal plants' releases of mercury and other toxic metals.
That's just what we need to do.
What those rules did was it made it very hard, almost impossible, to produce energy from coal. And now Trump is throwing that out. And businesses can plan now that they're going to get enough power to operate. The era of blackouts and brownouts is really behind us.
And with that electric car thing is losing its public favor. No kidding. I wonder where they're hearing that from. Americans are not as interested in purchasing electric vehicles anymore as they once were. Back in 22, the same survey found that 25% of those asked said we're either likely or very likely to buy a fully electric vehicle for the next car. Today, that number sits at just 16%. Over the past 4 years, those who said they would unlikely or very unlikely to purchase an EV rose from 51% in 22 to 63% in 25. Taking a longer view, the percentage of U.S. drivers who believe that most cars will be electric within the next 10 years, I don't think so, has declined from 40% in 22 to 23% this year. I think they heard us talking on the show, Dick.
Yeah, they heard you talking. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the game that the left has been playing is they pass a law in California, and they say this just is applying to California. This is an internal issue for California. And then because California is so large, such a large share of the market, all the other states fall in line and do what California did.
Right.
So Trump has signed an executive order overruling California car rules.
3 resolutions into law that will prevent California from implementing the vehicle emissions rules meant to reduce auto pollution and promote electric vehicles. Trump signed a measure that would block the waiver granted to California by Sleepy Joe's Environmental Protection Agency that allowed the state to set stringent emission standards and ban gas-powered vehicles by 2035. The other 2 measures bar California from setting strict emission standards on heavy-duty vehicles and nitrogen oxide pollution from trucks. Under the Biden administration, the federal government gave left-wing radicals in California dictator powers to control the future of the entire car industry. All over the country, all over the world, Trump said. Trump's campaign on rolling back policy that favors the EV industry and his administration has moved to reverse regulations and standards that help boost the sector. So there you go.
This game that California has been playing, where they pass a regulation and the rest of the country has to follow it, basically preempting Congress and the presidency, has now been stopped. And Trump is refusing to do that. And he's specifically stopping California from changing its rules.
And Dick, you said that basically because it's just such a big state, that's why the rest of the country follows? Explain that to me.
Well, they have a large enough market share of new vehicles that the car makers conform to those regulations, even though they don't legally have to.
All right, we got to break, Dick.
There are enough of the market, so they do it.
Unbelievable.
And Trump is really stopping that.
All right.
When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about why Japanese do not buy American cars.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So why don't Japanese buy American cars?
Okay, here we go. The tariff rate Japan has for U.S.-made autos is zero. That's right, zero. Nothing, nada, not a single yen. That's Dick Morris wrote that for me. Nothing, nada, not a single yen. So why don't Japanese buy U.S. autos? Well, 3 reasons. U.S. automakers refuse to meet Japanese fuel and safety regulations. Detroit says that Japanese government sets high fuel and safety standards. Japanese and European automakers meet those standards. U.S. automakers do not. A year prior to this writing, it was discovered that a few automakers here in Japan, including Toyota, were fudging on the standards. The cars they were making were safe, but they weren't using the process and test that the Japanese government mandated. Instead, they used an in-house test and lied. When this was discovered, the government shut it down and said automakers could not proceed until they followed the government's protocol. Japanese customers want small cars. U.S. car builders want to sell you big SUVs and trucks. Toyota, Nissan, and the like tend to design cars for the market. In the U.S., that means you see large SUVs and full-size pickups that U.S. consumers like.
Japan is the most crowded country in the world.
They need those small cars.
It's the size of Montana, and half of it is uninhabitable. And
right, mountain range and that kind of thing.
And they have 125 million people there, packed into the size of a state like Montana has 2 million. Wow. And so that they have very small houses, very small garages, and they can't put SUVs and full-size pickups in it. And the U.S. automakers don't produce something the Japanese will buy.
Right, the smaller.
So some of these problems can't be solved by tariffs. Just need some brains in Detroit. Go ahead, Doug.
In the mishmash of issues ranging from how Japanese buy cars to lingering views on how bad U.S. cars were. First of all, they were. They're not anymore. Reputation is everything in Japan, and Japanese have long memories. But U.S. cars are great now. I don't want to hear anyone tell me Japanese cars are better. They're not. TLDR, what is that? The tariff is 0% for autos coming into Japan. The Japanese just don't want to buy any U.S. automakers, refuse to make something they want. That's the problem. So I get that. So I understand. So anyway, also, yes, there is also the fact that, this is funny, the left-hand drive in the U.S. versus right-hand drive in Japan.
Yeah, Japanese drive the way the British do.
Yeah.
Left-handed.
Not well. And the U.S. automakers mostly being unwilling to make cars for the countries that drive on the left instead of the right. Oddly enough, the Japanese expressway system actually accounts for that with ticket lanes that have machines for left-hand drive cars and trucks. Go figure, huh?
Now, in the
but I understand the U.S. automakers. You know, it's a lot to retool their factories and make both sides drivable and whatnot. So I get it, but
but come on.
I know they should.
Japan is like the third largest economy in the world, And if you don't make cars the Japanese will buy, don't turn around and complain about we're being ripped off by Japan.
Yeah, right. Okay. You're right. I get it.
Now, in the discussions with the European Union about tariffs, Trump is emphasizing a fundamental fact that is not covered in the media and not talked about. German workers work less than American workers do. The Eagles had a perspective on that. Yes. So the new German Chancellor, Merz, said, we need to work more and above all more efficiently in this country. With a 4-day week, the work-life balance, we will not be able to sustain our prosperity. International comparisons consistently show that the average working week in Germany is among the shortest in Europe. According to Eurostat, the EU statistic agency, the German workers work 34 hours a week, compared to 36 in France, Italy, Spain, 39 in Poland, 37 in the UK, and over 40 in the US. Most studies suggest the average worker in Germany takes more sick days a year. The figure has nearly doubled since 2007, wow, from 8 to 15 working days. Then there are public holidays, well, not outstandingly numerous by European standards, varying from 9 a year in Berlin to 13 in Bavaria. So basically, the Germans don't work very hard, and that needs to change if they expect to be full participants in the global economy.
Amazing. Hey, Dick, you know, I said, Lux just told me, I said earlier TLDR, and Lux just said, too long to read.
Okay.
And I read it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
All right, Lux.
Now, when we come back, there's a very important story, unbelievable. Breast cancer may be en route to a huge breakthrough that would eradicate breast cancer.
Oh, thank God.
Just like polio is.
Beautiful.
This is unbelievable.
Beautiful.
When we come back.
When we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is an amazing research breakthrough. There's something unique to breast cancer, that one of the proteins in the cancerous cells, the lactation protein alpha-lactalbumin, is not present during most of a woman's life, except in pregnancy and breastfeeding. So a researcher at the Cleveland Clinic had the idea 2 decades ago to target alpha-lactalbumin and vaccinate women not planning to have any more children, which led to a new clinical trial. It's a very new mechanism, and we think that if it works, it will be able to prevent cancer. Then we can perhaps eliminate breast cancer as a disease. Eliminate breast cancer as a disease, just like we've done for polio and various other infectious diseases. Phase 2, set to begin next year, will test the vaccine on a larger group and for other types of breast cancer. So this is amazing.
Wow, that sounds great.
Let's hear the song on that.
Beautiful.
That song, Miracles, is a very special one for me and my wife, Eileen. It's our theme song, really, and here it's very applicable.
Wow.
The development of breakthrough vaccine, researchers say, could eradicate breast cancer, wrapped up its phase 1 clinical trial this week, with more than 75% of the women showing a strong immune response as measured by antibodies on their white blood cells. The vaccine is aimed at both preventing and treating breast cancer. The vaccine was funded by the Defense Department and developed by the Cleveland Clinic. During the trial's first phase, researchers gave the vaccine to 35 women, most of whom had triple-negative breast cancer, the most lethal form. The women had their blood drawn periodically to measure the level of antibody production against alpha-lactalbumin, the molecule targeted by the vaccine. This is amazing. This is unbelievably amazing.
Wow, I love that they're figuring this out.
Now, Robert Kennedy, who I just recently heard on WABC, an interview on the former Jeanine Pirro show with my friend Mark Penn, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy, is the only member of the Trump administration to receive strongly positive ratings from Democrats. And one of the reasons is he just fired every member of the independent panel advising him. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed, Kennedy said the move was necessary to restore faith in vaccines. A clean sweep is needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science, Kennedy wrote. The public must know that unbiased science, evaluated through a transparent process and insulated from conflict of interest, guides the recommendations of our health agency. Kennedy said removing every member of the panel gives Trump an opportunity to appoint the new members. Kennedy has long accused the members of the current board of having conflict of interest, sparking concern among vaccine advocates that he'll seek to install members who are far more skeptical of approving new vaccines. I hope he will. And it was such guts and such courage for him to replace the entire board. It's unbelievable.
Wow, that's great.
Now, a big development in the Ukraine war. Europe may pick up the slack as the U.S. cools on aid to Ukraine. The European pledges of support for Ukraine are now more than just lip service. They understand the centrality of this war to long-term European security, so much so that it is now their top priority. From 2021 to 2024, EU members' defense budgets jumped from $248 billion to $326 billion, and they're going up by another $114 billion by 27. There's been a flurry of diplomatic activity since Friedrich Merz took the German chancellery on May 6th, and that activity amounts to more than mere words. With an economy 9 times greater than Russia's, the EU is already in the process of replacing and has the potential to surpass the U.S. as Ukraine's chief supplier of armaments. The EU institutions are now involved on an entirely new level. The European Commission is bolstering the European Defense Union, which will help build out the bloc's defense industry and stimulate ammunition production. This is so important. In Trump's first term, he said, we're not going to defend you if you don't defend yourself. And that shocked the Europeans, and they agreed to dedicate 2% of their GDP to defense spending.
Well, Trump said that, pony up.
Yeah, and they did. They increased it to 2%. Now they're increasing it even further. And he says 5% is the new goal.
Oh, that's what Trump said, 5%?
Yep, and particularly in Poland and Scandinavia, they have really increased the amount of their spending on defense. I was just talking to a good friend of mine, John Jordan, who is an expert on defense and
great wine
on Russia. And he told me that the Polish army is now the most effective one in Europe, that they have completely taken the threat seriously and that they're really replacing a lot of the United States. So Trump's plan to stop endless wars and reposition our budget away from huge annual increases in defense spending and make Europe pick up the slack really is working.
Reposition our defense budget. I love it.
There's a new controversy going on about mining on the ocean bottom. The UN wants to regulate mining on the ocean bottom, but the U.S. has not ratified the Law of the Sea Treaty being pushed by the UN. So get this, there's a UN conference going on right now on a ship in the middle of the ocean that was moored in France. And under French auspices, it's now hosting a UN conference that's not letting a mining company prospect on the ocean floor for rare earth minerals. The Canadian company announced a return to the U.S. to seek a mining permit, thus bypassing the international body. The move drew widespread criticism from member states, who lamented a blow to multilateralism. In France, Energy Transition Minister Agnes Pannier-Runacher condemned the move as an act of environmental piracy carried out outside any legal framework. We must not let them get away with it, she insisted. Despite the outrage of the international community, Trump wasted no time in responding to these ambitions to exploit deep-sea production of rare earth minerals. On April 24th, the American president, concerned about China's interest in these ocean resources, and China does not abide by any of these treaties, signed an executive order to unleash America's offshore critical materials and resources. He directed his administration to speed up the process for approving exploration and commercial mining permits, not only in federal waters, but also in international waters. The French lawyers said this is in complete violation of international law. The issue will be at the heart of the conference that's going to be held in Nice. And the European Union said, we hope all the states supporting a moratorium will reaffirm their stance, and given recent developments in other countries, will join them. So Trump is opening a brand new front, and he's saying the UN does not have jurisdiction over the ocean floor because we have not signed the Law of the Sea Treaty. Miley Cyrus has some comments on that.
Miley? Did she ever get back on the rails, Miley Cyrus?
At the bottom of the ocean. And Trump is using the bottom of the ocean to replace China as a source of rare earth minerals. Very, very important.
So we got a report from the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, finds that the one big, beautiful bill, I call it the big badass bill, passed by the House last month would increase household resources across most of the income distribution, driven overwhelmingly by reductions in federal taxes. According to the CBO, average household income would rise over the 2026 and 2034 period under the legislation, which extends key provisions of the 2017 tax reform law and rolls back various health care and climate subsidies. The biggest winners are households in the top
decile, top 10%.
Right, would gain approximately $12,000 per year, or 2.3% of the projected income. Middle-income households would also see gains ranging from $500 to $1,000 annually. The only
this
group
is very important. It says that the BBB is not just helping the rich, but that the middle-class households, middle-income households, will get $1,000 a year extra as a result of the BBB. $1,000 per household extra.
Right. The only group expected to see a net decline in resources are those in the bottom income decile, who would lose about $1,600 per year, or nearly 4% of income, largely due to reduced eligibility for Medicaid and food stamp benefits.
So when this came out, the Congressional Budget Office headline was, Trump tax cuts widen the gap between the rich and the poor. Well, that was absolute bull. The lowest 10% dropped $1,600 a year in money, largely because they were no longer eligible for welfare, for Medicaid and food stamp benefits. But the middle class, where the bulk of the country is, will make $12,000 per year more in income because of this bill.
$12,000?
$12,000 per year more.
Nice.
$1,000 a month. No, I'm sorry. $12,000 a year for the top. The middle income people would be $1,000 a year of increased income. So if you don't feel you have a stake in the balanced budget bill that Trump is pushing,
You do.
You do. Over the next 5 years, you're going to make $5,000 more than you're making now because of the tax cuts Trump is pushing.
And when we get back, we're going to talk about how this bill pushes the Trump agenda. It's beautiful.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Hi, Jack and Amy. How are you?
Yeah. Jack Haney and his wife Amy Haney are
that was
driving
good.
right now.
Jack and Amy
they're
Haney.
listening to this show because they're sponsoring it.
Yeah. So what are we talking about? The big,
I just want to
beautiful
repeat
bill.
what we said in the previous segment.
Uh-huh.
The average household in the United States will experience an increase of $1,000 in income, inflation adjusted,
right,
as a result of the big, beautiful bill that's now passing $1,000 per year for the next 6 years. So if you're making $80,000, you're going to make $81,000 and going up to $86,000, adjusted for inflation because of this Trump tax cut. Now, the big, beautiful bill pushes Trump's agenda in other respects.
Yeah, the bill also requires states beginning in fiscal 2029 to start charging Medicaid beneficiaries with incomes over 100% of the federal poverty level, $32,000 for a family of four. Co-pays of up to $35 for certain services, exempting primary, prenatal, pediatric, and emergency care.
So wait a minute, that's what the whole furor is about.
No.
The whole idea the Democrats are pushing that Trump is raping Medicaid. What he's doing is saying that if you are not in poverty, you have to pay up to $35 for certain services.
Right, what's wrong with
that? But not
that?
including primary, pediatric, prenatal, or emergency care. $35.
They're just
That's all
targeting.
this is about.
They're targeting people
$35.
and their emotions and all that bull. That's all they do. It doesn't mean anything to anyone else in the world. Anyway, another provision requiring the Department of Health and Human Services to establish a system to prevent individuals from being simultaneously enrolled in multiple state. Wow, enrolled in multiple state Medicaid programs carries a deadline of fiscal 2030, which begins in the next presidential administration.
Now listen to this one.
All right. Another provision provides a $1,000 federal contribution into the new Trump savings account for the U.S. citizen born between 2025 and 2028. Once they turn 18, the account holders can begin taking distributions for higher education, training programs, small business loans, or first-time home purchase. This is great. Talk about this, Dick. We talked about this a couple months ago.
Every baby in the United States who's under the age, who is just born up to age 3, is going to get a federal tax-deductible, tax-exempt contribution of $1,000 into a savings account. The parent has to pay for it, but they don't pay taxes on the amount. It's a tax-free savings thing. So that Trump is basically assuring that once they turn 18, account holders or people now just born can begin taking distributions for higher education, training programs, small business loans, or first-time home purchases.
This is not volunteer. They put the money in. This is...
yeah, it's voluntary, but it's tax deductible.
Good. All right, beautiful.
So it's heavily incentivized.
Beautiful.
So if you're worried that your family may be doing okay now, but you just had a baby, and what's that baby's life going to be like?
Sure.
you can now contribute $1,000 a year, tax-free, to a fund that will be a savings account for your baby. And by the time they grow up, when they're 18, they can use it to buy a home, they can use it for their education. When I worked with Trump in the campaign, a big thing was that I said, let's not just be pro-life and say, okay, well, thank you for having the baby, now goodbye. Instead, provide benefits for mothers and for newborn children. And that's just what Trump is doing here, saying that if you don't have abortion, you have the baby, we're going to reward you with the ability to save $1,000 a year per family that you can save tax-free. A huge
per family
change.
or per child?
Per child.
Per child, right. Beautiful. Good.
Now, one of the huge changes in the BBB is that the United States, workers in the United States, who are foreigners, who are, most of them are here, many of them are here illegally, not all, but many, send their money home to their native land,
Sure.
to their parents, to their family. And right now, that money is not taxed. Many of these countries have huge amounts that are sent back by the people working here, many of them here illegally, to their home country. Nicaragua received $374 million in remittances.
Wow.
27% of its economy was paid for by workers from Nicaragua working in the United States, sending money home.
27%?
Yep.
Wow.
And 30% in Honduras. So basically a quarter of the economy of the Central American countries is earned in the United States
Wow.
by illegal immigrants.
Now, when they send this money, it's wired? They send it with a pigeon?
Wired and tax-free.
Homing pigeon?
Wired and tax-free.
Right.
So Eric Schmidt, a Republican of Missouri, a good senator, said that Congress should quadruple the tax on remittances. But in the big, beautiful bill, we impose a tax of 3.5% on remittances. Mike Lee, a senator from Utah, Republican, wrote that support for the 3.5% remittance tax just got stronger, and I expect the rate could go up, increasing tenfold.
Good.
The House passed Big Beautiful Bill would institute a 5% tax on remittances from illegal aliens to immigrants outside the United States, and would also provide a refundable tax credit for any excise taxes paid by taxpayers who have valid Social Security numbers. So if you're here illegally and you're sending money home, we're going to pay we can take 3.5% of the money you send, and it's going to go to Washington instead. Now, the Mexicans are raising hell about that. You may have seen in the demonstrations on the street where you see green, white, and red flags waving, Mexican flags.
And rocks and fire bombs.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And Mexicans under Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president, are opposed to the tax on remittances.
What a shame.
She's been on a mission to try to head off a provision, the Big Beautiful Bill, that would impose a 3.5% tax on money that's shipped abroad. Known as remittances, these have become the foundation of economies throughout Latin America. In Mexico, remittances account for about 4% of the GDP. As I said, in countries like Honduras and Nicaragua, it accounts for over a quarter of the nation's economy. The idea of taxing remittances has long been popular among those who favor a crackdown on illegal immigration. It's long been in the making, but it's a no-brainer, said the policy director of the Immigration Accountability Project. If you have American money leaving your economy, you should maybe take a look at that and see if you can do something about it. And obviously, there is something we can do about it. The president of Mexico urged Mexicans and Mexican Americans to lobby Congress to register their opposition. She called the tax unconstitutional, saying it amounted to double taxation. There is an injustice, she told reporters, And that sparked Senator Schmidt to say, okay, he'll change the thing and set the tax rate at 15%.
Yeah, what about when they tax the death tax and when your father, people die and you have to, so what, we get taxed 20 times over ourselves. Too bad.
But when you talk about stopping illegal immigration, you can stop paying people to illegally immigrate to the United States.
Right.
And you're basically paying them by letting them take their wages here and send them back to their families in Central America. And it provides a quarter of the income of the families. And they can do it without a tax. And what this is doing is imposing a tax. And it ought to be a lot more than 3.5%.
That's right.
And probably will. But this legislation is the first time there's been any tax at all on that.
So they're going to lobby all the Democrats, and the Republicans are going to laugh them out of the lobby.
Yep. Now, this next story is very important. The Chinese economy is in very deep trouble. We have a history in this country of overestimating the ability of our opponents. We did that with Russia for years. Nobody thought Russia would implode. And when we applied pressure, the country fell apart.
Talking about Ronald Reagan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now it's very clear that China is in very serious trouble. Bob Dylan has a thought on that. China consumer prices slump again, deepening deflation worries as demand stays weak. When you have deflation, prices are going down. People stop working, people stop investing, businesses stop thinking that they would sell stuff. And when that started happening in Japan in the 1980s and 1990s, Japan was going to be the country of the future. And it's now sunk into a 50-year cycle of deflation. And it can't get out of it, and it's destroying the Japanese economy. And now China's going into the same dark hole. China's consumer prices fell for a fourth consecutive month in May, as Beijing's stimulus measures appear insufficient to boost domestic consumption, with price wars in the auto sector adding to the downward pressure. The consumer price index for China slipped into negative territory in February, falling 0.7%. Aside from the persistently weak consumer demand, a bruising price war kept prices down. While exports have been holding strong, China needs to rely increasingly on domestic demand to fight deflation. And that's the key vulnerability of China. They have no economy. They basically produce their economy for export. And when the U.S. imposes tariffs and other barriers, China absolutely falls apart. On May 7th, China's top financial regulators unleashed a flurry of policy steps aimed at bolstering the country's tariff-hit economy. The China Bank cut key interest rates by 10 basis points to historically low levels and lowered the reserve requirement, which determines the amount of cash banks must hold in reserve, by 50 basis points. Trump had raised up tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%, now back down to 35%. The economy got some relief after Trump cut a deal with them, but it still is in a deflationary spiral. So China is a basket case economically, and the idea that they are going to be a major adversary of the United States is absolutely belied by the fact that our economy is soaring while their economy is falling apart.
Mm. Wow, that's great.
Doug?
So, New York passes euthanasia bill. In a landmark and deeply divisive move, the New York State Senate on Monday narrowly passed legislation that would allow terminally ill adults to end their lives with the assistance of a physician, setting the stage for a pivotal decision by Hochul. The bill, known as the Medical Aid in Dying Act, passed by 35 to 27 vote after a heated 3-hour debate, marking a significant moment in the state's history and drawing both fervent praise and fierce condemnation from across the political and social spectrum. As reported by the Post, the measure's passage was hailed by supporters as a major step forward for personal autonomy, while critics warned it could endanger the vulnerable and erode ethical standards in healthcare. I don't know how I feel about this. I almost like it. I'm not sure yet.
I'd love to hear how our listeners feel about it.
Yeah.
Give a call to, what's the number, 888, Doug?
Oh, yeah. What is 1-800-848-9222. 9222.
800-848-9222.
Right.
Let us know how you feel about it.
Yeah. So the bill's sponsor, Senator Brad Holman, Segal, I guess you say it like that, criticized the legislation as one of the state's most meaningful social reforms. Speaking at a press conference before the vote, Segal placed the bill alongside historic measures such as legalization of same-sex marriage in New York. This is about personal autonomy. This is about liberty. This is about exercising one's own freedom to control one's body, he said, underscoring what he and advocates believe is a fundamental human right. With the bill's fate now in the hands of the Governor Hochul, all eyes are on Albany. The governor will review the legislation, a spokesman said Monday, offering no immediate hint as to whether she will sign the bill into law, veto it, or allow it to become law without her signature. Hochul's decision is likely to be closely scrutinized by advocacy groups on both sides of the issue. The New York Post report noted that her office has been inundated with calls from religious leaders, disability rights activists, and medical professionals urging her to veto the bill. The bill was championed by organizations like Compassion and Choices, which describes it as a compassionate, reasoned option for people facing terminal illnesses and unbearable suffering. Corinne Carey, the group's senior campaign director, said in a statement that the law would bring peace and dignity to those in their final. I agree with this. I think I do.
Well, give us a call. Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, we have a couple of calls here.
But something that, if we have some calls, let's.
No, not yet. When we get back, we'll have
when
them.
We come back,
We're
we'll take calls from the break.
After we break.
But this is a brand new thing. Remember, New York was the first state in the country to legalize abortion.
We do have a caller, Dick. We have Ann from New Haven about this.
Okay, let's go to Ann.
Let's go, Ann.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling to say that I'm definitely against euthanasia. I'm a religious person, and if you talk to any religious person, they will tell you that when people are at the end of their life, their prayers are very, very powerful for the people behind. And that is against God's law. So, I mean, this is just another affront to God. First we started with the abortion, which is out of control.
Yeah.
Now they're just going to be killing all old people. It's terrible.
The governor of Colorado, a guy named Richard Lamb, wrote his political obituary when he said people have a duty to die, and that set the euthanasia movement back decades. But now it's coming up again, and it's really interesting to see what people say. So please call us and tell us what you think.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to talk about liberation coming to New Jersey in the form of Citarelli, the new Republican.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Let's go to Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph.
Good, please. Hi, Joseph.
In Fairfield, Connecticut.
Hello, Dick. Yes, absolutely demonic, evil. And there was a good piece by Lee Stefanik in the Post 2 days ago about condemning Hochul in supporting this.
He's talking about euthanasia.
I spoke about her.
The New York State Legislature has just passed a law legalizing euthanasia. Go ahead.
Go on, Joe.
Okay, am I on? Yeah.
Yes.
So that piece by Elise Stefanik was excellent. She went after Huckabee for basically being evil, I'd say, demonic. As a practicing Catholic, and not just for that. I mean, it's just philosophically and scientifically, you can't ask doctors to end somebody's life. They're there to extend life from the beginning of birth to a natural death. And then what's happening in Canada, assisted suicide led to euthanasia, and they're even asking people with mental illness that can't even think to commit suicide to end their life.
Well, I'm not.
This is totally demonic. It's totally anti-civilization. It's totally wrong and has to stop.
It's a slippery slope.
I know.
When you start encouraging people to commit suicide, it's a very slippery slope.
The only thing, and I'm a Catholic also, and I could move over to what they're saying about this. But if somebody's suffering, if my mother or somebody is suffering in a hospital bed, I could be convinced to go the other way because I am a Catholic, and if a priest really pushes me. But if my mother's suffering, for months, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with it. I don't know where I stand.
Now, this is not murder. It's euthanasia.
I know.
Your mother would control whether she died or not.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Is critically
but
important.
I see the argument, family members say, all right, put her out, type of thing. That's not funny. But
I
don't know where I
stand.
There's
such a motivation for family members to pull the plug.
I know. That's the point.
A lot of money. My wife, Eileen, had a stroke 4.5 years ago. And since then, I've had to pay out of pocket $22,000 a month to keep her in a nursing home.
Yep.
And if I loved her less, the motivation to pull the plug would be enormous. And I'm worried that if euthanasia is allowed,
a lot
of people could do that.
All right, you could move me over to that side, Dick. And we also have Kat in New Jersey talking about this also.
Please.
Hi, Kat.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you? What do you got?
Hi, Kat. You're on.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, you're on.
Kat?
Kat, you're on the Dick Morris.
Yes,
Doug DePiro
I'm
show.
on.
Okay, go.
Hi. My concern with that bill is that people, as they get older and they feel like a burden on their family members,
right.
I feel like it's going to make them feel obligated, many people, to choose that option because it's there and it's viable. And, on a personal level, I'm not crazy about it, but I just really think we're not thinking through the way it's going to make people feel that they have an obligation to relieve their family of the burden.
Yeah,
I just think
it's definitely a moral back and forth. I don't even know where I stand right now about it.
Just to return to politics, we had the primaries in New Jersey.
Citarelli.
And now is a real chance for Republicans to win New Jersey.
So,
tell them about it, Doug.
And do you say Cheryl or Cheryl, this name of the...
Citarelli.
No, the woman he's running against. Citarelli versus Cheryl. Citarelli received 67% of the vote over radio host Bill Spadilla at 22%, and State Senator John Bramnick at 6%. This is Citarelli's third run for governor. He came in second in the Republican gubernatorial primary in 2017. However, by 2021, he won the GOP nomination and inched within 3 points of Governor Phil Murphy for the general election. New Jersey has been trending more favorable for Republicans, with Trump coming within 5 points of winning the historically blue state in 24. State Republicans are expressing confidence in Citarelli's win going into November. Citarelli, I say 3 ways. Citarelli will face Representative Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey, Democrat, who beat a crowded field of Democrats. So it's nice.
Keep going, Doug.
All right, so Sherrill draws the lines in the governor race. Sherrill, 53, who is in her 4th term in the House, is a graduate of Annapolis and former Navy helicopter pilot and federal prosecutor. the various candidates worked hard to differentiate themselves to voters. Sherrill ran on affordability with a plan to expand the state's child tax credit and earned income tax credit. She said New Jerseyans are passionate about their state, but the thought of not being able to raise your kids here or stay to see your grandchildren grow is simply unacceptable. I will tell you what I've learned. There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who think that the only way to get ahead is to put themselves first, and those who understand that when we all do better, we all do better, Sherrill said.
That's the classic liberal mantra. Hillary used to say it takes a village. And Obama said, if you built your career successfully,
right,
you didn't build it. Everybody else did.
Right. So anyway, Sherrill is the right way to say her name, not Sherrill. Sherrill said, those people mentor others. They create opportunity. I learned in the Navy that true leaders are servant leaders. It's as much about serving others as it is leading them. And I have always been honored to serve this country and serve this state. Mickey Sherrill launches blistering attack on Jack Ciattarelli. The state deserves the best. A state like this is not going to be led by a Trump lackey like Ciattarelli, Sherrill said. And I'm ready to make life more affordable for families. Jack has raised taxes at every level of government. He raised taxes in council member. He raised taxes as a commissioner, and you'll guess it, your taxes went up when he was assembly member. Is this true, Dick?
We're going to have Ciattarelli on to rebut a lot of this. A lot of those tax increases were tax increases he opposed and simply passed while he was a legislator.
Right.
But in Sherrill, we have a typical party line Democrat who opposes Trump and opposes everything he's done, whereas Ciattarelli is a good, strong supporter of Trump's.
Right. Good.
Now, Trump has just banned the use of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as a basis of federal employees. The new hiring policies completely nixed discriminatory equity quotas in accordance with Trump's executive order. DEI hiring process used by Biden too often resulted in the hiring of unfit, unskilled bureaucrats.
Yeah, sure.
And now the new head said to be considered for promotion, you have to be able to document what you were doing to do your job. It said, do not use stats on race, sex, ethnicity, or national origin, or the broader concept of underrepresentation of certain groups in any hiring, recruiting, retention, or promotion decisions. An absolutely crucial breakthrough.
Wow. The new hiring policy requires federal job applicants to answer 4 questions. How has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States inspired you to pursue this role within the federal government? Provide a concrete example from professional, academic, or personal experience. Good. In this role, number 2, in this role, how would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency and effectiveness? Provide specific examples where you improved processes, reduced costs, or improved outcomes. Number 3, how would you help advance the president's executive orders and policy priorities in this role? Identify one or more relevant executive orders or policy initiatives that are significant to you and explain how you would help implement them if hired. Number 4, and the last one, how has a strong work ethic contributed to your professional, academic, or professional achievements? Provide 1 or 2 specific examples and explain how those qualities would enable you to serve effectively in this position.
Trump has taken a step back on immigration reform, and that's very significant. It's the first step back that he's ever taken. Trump directed ICE to stop immigration raids on workers in agriculture, hotels, and restaurants. The shift in enforcement strategy comes after Trump posted on Truth Social Thursday, expressing concern that tough immigration measures were harming key American industries reliant on immigrant labor. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good long-term workers away from them, and those jobs are almost impossible to fill. That is not good. We must protect our farmers and get criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming. This is really the first step that Trump has ever taken back on the issue of illegal immigration.
Is it? Oh, I thought he did some other stuff. That's it, really? First one?
No, this is it. And it really is a main change. What's needed here is a guest worker program where people can legally come into the United States for a limited period of time, and after that time, leave the U.S.
Yeah.
Particularly for harvesting of grapes and other stuff.
Right.
And this is a policy that President Eisenhower had, and we should bring it back now.
Right. So we're going to go in a minute, but House passes a bill to ban non-citizen voting in D.C. The second bill, which passed with 56 Democrats voting for it, bars non-citizens from issue for Republicans over the last year. Anyway, we have to take a break, so after that we'll talk about it.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And Dick, I just want to apologize to some of our callers because we're not in the studio. I am, but Dick's not. We don't see the screen the same way, so that's why some of our callers didn't get on the air today.
Now, while Trump is retreating and on the issue of illegal immigration for hotel, restaurant workers and agricultural workers, he has a message for illegals who are on parole. Those are people from, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. The Trump administration is telling Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, that's Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, that came to the U.S. under a Biden-era program, that they must immediately leave the U.S. and encouraging them to self-deport. Homeland Security said that it is notifying recipients of the paroles, allowing them in, that they have not obtained lawful status to remain in the U.S. and must leave immediately. Ending the parole programs, as well as the parolees of those who exploited it, will be a necessary return to common sense policies, a return to public safety, and a return to America First, said the Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security. So, on the one hand, Trump is telling workers in the hospitality and the agricultural sector that they can stay. But he's telling people who are not, in other industries, to get the heck out. And it's important. And his plan is working. In just 1 week in June, U.S. attorneys along the border charged more than 1,150 people with immigration crimes. These aren't just poor people looking for a job. Many of them done very bad things before.
Yeah.
We're talking about serious stuff like drugs, violent crimes, and sneaking other people across the border.
Right. And he's clashing with the left over ICE also, this thing. President Trump has a plan. It's called Operation Take Back America, and it's all about making our country safe. The Department of Justice is working hard on this. Since the inauguration of President Trump, the Department of Justice is playing a critical role in Operation Take Back America, a nationwide initiative to repel the invasion of illegal immigration, achieve total elimination of cartels and transnational criminal organizations, and protect our communities from perpetrators of violent crime.
Meanwhile, the Democrats have come up short in their hunt for immigrant votes. Naturalized immigrant voters are now siding strongly with Donald Trump on immigration policy and the economic chaos inflicted by Biden's administration.
Yeah, because
I
they
repeat
left.
that.
They left their countries.
Naturalized immigrant voters,
Naturalized
people who came here illegally, are now siding with Trump on immigration policy.
Yeah, that's why they left their countries, because they didn't like what was going on. Now the Democrats want to make this country like the countries they left. A lot of
polling
words.
shift is a body blow for Democrats, who openly plan to win political power by importing foreign workers. The plan was based on liberals' condescending view that legal immigrants would always identify themselves as allies of next year's immigrants. But this identity politics perspective ignores the reality that recent legal immigrants suffer the greatest economic and civic pressure from the next wave of immigrants. The new polling numbers leave Democrats in a strategic bind. Cutbacks to immigration, to legal and illegal immigration, would encourage more of existing legal immigrants to side with big spending policies. But these migration cutbacks would also raise wages and prosperity for all voters, so reducing many other Democrat willingness to vote for big spending. The head of the CNN polling, a guy named Harry Enton, said you go back to where Democrats were in 2020. They held a 32-point lead among immigrant voters. Jump forward to now. There's been a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue among immigrant voters by 8 points over Democrats. More than any group I can find, this group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who were registered to vote in this country. In 24, Trump won 47% of legal immigrants, up from 36% in 2016. In 2020, a solid majority of legal immigrants were sympathetic to illegal immigrants, but that has changed. That group of legal immigrant voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who came here illegally. In fact, they became favorable not just toward Trump, but toward a Republican point of view on immigration, and becoming distant from those immigrants who were here illegally. So this is a gigantic change. The Democrats had always banked on the idea that immigrants would support immigrants. But once they're here and they're anchored in the United States, they see illegal immigration the same way the rest of the country sees it, as encouraging bad people to come into the United States and take jobs away from people who came in illegally and who live here legally, and depressing the wages of the ordinary person. So this has been a revolutionary change. Now, there have been a lot of comments that Trump is winning the Latino vote, and that is a revolution. But there's a revolution within the revolution, which is that recent immigrants, legal immigrants, are now siding with Trump over the issue of immigration.
I think people
change.
feel as though once you break the law, it's easy to break it again. You know, I think that's what they're thinking. You know, it has to be it. You know, but
and they're becoming American, and in the course of that, they're realizing that their interests are not being served by the inflow of illegal immigrants, allowing and by holding illegal immigration out, you permit the wages of ordinary Americans to begin creeping up.
So anyway, Dick, I want to say Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Happy Father's Day to you too. Happy Grandfather's Day to Dick Morris.
Yes,
and it's an honor to be here with you, sir. Even though you're not here.
Grandfather, my daughter gave birth to a baby last week, my first grandchild. She's now 1 week old. Her name is Sophia, and she lives in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And I am thrilled. I can't tell you how excited I am.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
That's the real bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay,
Happy
bye-bye.
Father's Day, Dick.
Thank you.
Happy Grandpa. Sophia, beautiful name.
Yes. It means wisdom.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Save $100 on the Craftsman V26 Tool Power Tool Combo Kit, now at $199. No matter what the project is, Craftsman's high-quality, high-performance products empower you to build on. Stop by your nearest Lowe's store and check out the full line of Craftsman tools today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.